Hey guys, tonight we're taking a long, slow step into the mist. Into the part of history that feels more like a memory someone dreamed up after too much rice wine. You're going to time travel, not with blinking lights or humming machines, but by lying still, breathing gently, and letting the fog of imagination roll in like an early morning river mist. Now, full disclosure, you probably wouldn't survive this era. Not because people were out to get you, although, honestly, some of them probably were, but because toilets hadn't been invented, dental care was just chewing sticks and hope, and if you so much as stubbed your toe, you might end up with a village-wide funeral. But don't worry. This version of the past is soft, calm, and comfortably bug-free. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, tell me in the comments, where are you listening from and what time is it where you are? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You start walking through tall, wet grass. It's just before dawn and the sky is still holding its breath. There's a smell clean, earthy, and ancient. It's not quite mud, not quite smoke, but something in between. The fog clings to your ankles like sleepy silk, and every step squelches softly beneath your feet. You pass trees with crooked arms, hunched like they've been whispering secrets to each other for 5,000 years. Somewhere in the distance, a river sighs. The water doesn't rush. It flows like it has time, like it remembers. This is the edge of history, the place where written records fail you, where scrolls curl up and shrug and say, ask someone older. But no one older is left, so here you are, wandering into the Xia Dynasty, or something like it. Because, let's get real, historians still argue about whether the Xia Dynasty even existed. Some say it was China's first real dynasty, rising around 2070 BCE, like a phoenix made of river clay and tribal politics. Others say it's a bedtime story made up by the Xia Dynasty to justify their own rule. Kind of like a historical, our ancestors did it, so we should be in charge too. But you don't care, you're not here for political justification. You're here for the vibe. And the vibe is stillness, anticipation, as if something is about to begin. There are no cities yet, no great walls or terracotta armies, no poets sipping tea under plum blossoms. You're standing in a world that hasn't been carved up by emperors or mapped by satellites. It's just land, water, and people trying to stay alive long enough to see their kids grow up. You walk a little farther and find yourself on a raised hill. The ground here is packed tight, as if many feet have passed this way, and they have. Traders, farmers, priests with oddly shaped hats. Maybe even you, the great himself, once stood here, squinting into the floodplain and thinking, yeah, this might be a problem. You crouch down and scoop up a handful of dirt. It crumbles in your fingers. Dry now, but not always. This land has been soaked and drained 1,000 times over. That's the thing about the Yellow River. It gives and it destroys. Long before this hill, the floods would come like a tantrum, sweeping away homes, fields, even entire villages. The people told stories of water demons, of dragons under the surface with twisted bodies and terrible moods, and maybe they were right. Maybe the river really was angry. Or maybe they just needed a reason for the suffering. You hear a faint rustling behind you. You turn, but it's only a deer, blinking at you like you're the weird one here. Which fair? As the sun creeps over the horizon, it touches everything with gold. The mist starts to lift, revealing the faint outlines of structures, just wooden frames, nothing more. These are early homes, wattle and daub, roofs of straw, doors made from bark, no gates, no guards. Just a village where the day begins early, because the chickens never learned to sleep in. You keep walking. A child darts past you, barefoot and giggling. She's chasing a dog that looks more like a furry potato with legs. Her laughter cuts through the morning like a bell. And just for a moment, it feels like you're part of this world. You find yourself wondering, if you lived here, what would you be? A potter, a farmer? One of those ceremonial guys with ash on your face and too many feathers in your hair. You'd probably be bad at it, let's be honest, but maybe you'd find your rhythm. Rise with the sun, sleep when it sets. Eat rice and river fish and whatever root vegetable no one else wants. That's the rhythm of this era. Slow, circular, dependent on weather, luck, and the kindness of neighbors. There's something comforting in that simplicity. No email, no meetings, just trying to stay dry during the flood season and hoping the goats don't eat your ceremonial robe. As you round a corner, you see a stone, just one, large and flat. It sits like it's been placed with purpose. Around it are little shards, bits of shell, bone, maybe jade. Offerings, trash, honestly, with no labels, it's hard to tell, but it meant something once. A breeze stirs. You close your eyes and listen. The past doesn't speak in sentences. It hums. It murmurs in bird calls, in the rustle of trees, in the way your feet find old paths without thinking. This is how the Xia begins for you, not with a date or a declaration, but with a breath. The sun climbs higher. You feel its warmth on your arms, and for a moment, everything is soft, simple, gentle. You smile. This will do. You take another step, your feet brushing over low grass and loose stone, and before you realize it, you're walking along the banks of the Yellow River. The locals call it Mother River, and that makes sense. She gives life, takes it, and absolutely does not want your opinion about her methods. The water is thick and restless, the color of stirred clay. It doesn't sparkle like a crystal stream in some overused fairy tale. No, this river is heavy. You feel it in your chest. She drags soil from distant mountains and drops it where she pleases, reshaping the land like a moody sculptor. This river is the reason people settled here, and also the reason they kept having to move. Imagine building your whole village out of hard-earned sweat and bundled reeds, only to have it swept away because the river got bored and decided to shift 10 miles east. Still, they stayed. People settled and resettled, throwing their lives into this muddy promise. Because with floods came silt. With silt came fertile soil. And with that came rice and millet and babies who could someday maybe be kings. That's the dream, right? You crouch by the water's edge. The mud is soft and smells like iron and rain. A frog plops into the shallows. You pretend not to notice that it startled you. Farther downstream, there's movement. People with woven baskets are standing knee-deep in the current, laughing as they scoop up wriggling fish. One woman shouts something at a man who's clearly doing it wrong. He waves her off, then immediately drops his catch. Their daughter claps at the chaos. It's oddly peaceful. This might be the only time you'd want to be part of the local economy. As you follow the curve of the river, the path rises. Now you're looking down on the valley. Terraces slope gently toward the banks, dotted with early crops. No irrigation systems yet, just clever channeling, shallow trenches, and a whole lot of guessing. But someone had a better idea once. A man named Yu, or Da Yu, if you're being respectful. You should be. He's the guy who didn't just tame the floods. He walked straight into them. Yu is one of those figures in Chinese history where you can't quite tell where the man ends and the myth begins. Which is fair, because most stories about him involve him single-handedly moving mountains and digging massive canals with, presumably, superhuman patience and the world's first shovel. According to legend, Yu didn't do this the easy way. His father tried to stop floods with dams and failed. Yu, on the other hand, realized you don't block a dragon's path. You guide it. So instead of holding the waters back, he carved new routes, channeling the floods into safe plains and out toward the sea. Here's the best part. He did this by traveling the country for 13 years. And not once, supposedly, did he stop to visit his own home. Even when he passed it. Even when his wife gave birth. He just waved, shouted, "Love you," over his shoulder and kept digging. Historians still wonder if this is metaphor or exaggeration or just the world's earliest workaholic flex. But the story stuck, because even if it's myth, it's the kind that holds the shape of truth you imagine walking beside him. Yu, caked in mud, hair like straw, his voice hoarse from shouting instructions over the roar of water. He doesn't look regal, he looks tired, focused. The kind of person who never forgets a task even when he really should be sleeping. And for his efforts, the people gave him power. Not just respect, but actual succession. That's the twist. Before him, rulers were chosen by virtue, by worth. Like being nominated for a leadership position because you're the only one who can lift a cow or organize a barn. But you handed power to his son. And that might have been the first spark of dynasty. You lean on a low boulder and let that settle in. The shift from merit to bloodline is subtle. Like a river carving its new shape over time, but it changes everything. Behind you, a bird chirps once, sharply. You turn your head and spot a kingfisher perched on a branch, its feathers bright as polished turquoise. It watches you like it knows you're not from here. It's not wrong. As you walk further along the embankment, you begin to notice changes in the terrain. Raised platforms, low walls, early earthworks maybe. You imagine villagers shaping these by hand, pulling mud with woven baskets, layering soil with sweat. You try to picture what it felt like, living in a place where the land could love you one season and drown you the next. Where your life depended on how well you understood water. Not just where it flowed, but how it thought, because it did think in a way. The Xia believed in spirits. In breath flowing through earth, sky, river, and the river. Oh, it had moods. You didn't control it. You asked. You reasoned. You built altars and whispered to it during dry seasons, hoping it wouldn't forget you. A breeze picks up. It brushes the tall grass along the bank, making it shiver like it just heard a rumor. You sit for a moment, legs stretched out, arms behind you. The sky is soft and overcast, like a bowl of warm porridge about to spill rain. You listen. There's no rush here, no horns, no messages. Just the sound of water licking stone, of wind through straw huts, of distant voices, and the clink of a cooking pot. It's quiet. But not empty. You wonder, just a little, what this place would look like hundreds of years later. If the Xia had left more behind, walls, scrolls, statues, would we believe more of their story? Would we call you a king or a glorified irrigation expert with good PR? You don't have answers. That's fine. Sometimes questions are softer to fall asleep with anyway. You lie back. The river murmurs beside you. The clouds move slowly overhead, like they're in no hurry to finish their journey. Neither are you. Your fingers trail lazily through the air as you stand again, brushing a bit of river mist off your arms. The yellow river continues its wide, muddy path behind you, content to be left alone for now. But you've heard the story. Now you want to see what came of it. The path beneath your feet feels different now, firmer, straighter, almost like it remembers being deliberately made. The villages you pass have changed, too, less scattered, more organized. Some huts now have low fences. There's even a lookout post, just a raised platform really, where a boy stands chewing on something vaguely root-shaped, pretending he's on watch when he's mostly just bored. You're moving through the echoes of something bigger than villages, early governance, early leadership. And right in the center of it all, you the Great, well, not him exactly. He's been dead a few years by now, long enough for people to start arguing about which of his ideas were brilliant and which were you had to be there. But his legend, very much alive. You approach what feels like a gathering place. Stone markers form a wide ring, with packed earth flattened from countless feet. This might have been a meeting ground or a ceremonial center, or just a place where bored uncles came to loudly argue about millet prices. Either way, there's a sense of structure here. Purpose, and you can feel it. This isn't just a tribe anymore. After you died, probably from exhaustion and politely repressed rage at water, he broke tradition. Instead of passing leadership to the next most virtuous person, as was custom in the previous Sage King model, he handed it to his son, Kai. Kai wasn't bad as far as early kings go. His name literally means enlightenment, though honestly, that could have been a PR move. His real claim to fame is making hereditary rule a thing. That's when the dream of the Xia Dynasty, as a bloodline, not just a leadership style, really started to crystallize. You wander through a field that smells like rain-soaked grain. A few oxen snort lazily nearby, blinking as if they were mid-philosophical thought. One of them grunts at you like he's heard your inner monologue and disagrees. People here live close to the land. You can tell. Their tools are simple but worn smooth with use. They're no longer just surviving. They're organizing, dividing labor, appointing leaders, and, inevitably, collecting taxes, probably in the form of grain and mild resentment. You stop beside a low, flat rock that might once have served as a seat of judgment. There's a carved symbol, crude and unfamiliar. It could mean peace, or punishment, or possibly just sit here. You don't ask questions, you sit, and for a moment you imagine yourself as Uzair, not Kai exactly, but someone like him. Someone with a river in your memory and a throne in your future. There's tension there. Because ruling isn't just about taming floods anymore, it's about people. Expectations, in-laws, the ever-complicated issue of cousins who think they'd do a better job, that sort of thing. Still, the Xia hold power for generations. How many? We don't know exactly. Ancient texts list 17 kings, but archaeology hasn't caught up. The dynasty likely lasted several hundred years, but whether that was one long, continuous rule or a patchwork of local rulers with good branding remains open for debate. Historians still wonder if the Xia was a centralized state or a loose confederation of powerful clans nodding in polite agreement while doing their own thing. Like a group project where one guy gets credit for doing the PowerPoint while everyone else just brings snacks. You hear drums in the distance, slow and even. Rhythmic, ceremonial, you walk toward the sound and find yourself at the edge of a gathering. Villagers in simple robes stand in a wide circle, heads bowed slightly as an elder offers something to the sky. It looks like millet cake, possibly sacred. Possibly just slightly burnt. You watch without intruding. There's reverence here, not showy but deep-rooted. These people believe in heaven, earth, and everything in between. And right now they're asking for good harvests, safe waters, and, if you had to guess, fewer snakes in the cooking pit. The air smells of incense and clay. You close your eyes and take it in. When you open them, a child has wandered up to you, offering a small, carved object. It's a turtle, its shell etched with crude lines. You smile and take it, running your thumb over the grooves. Turtles were symbols of longevity, or perhaps just pets with low maintenance expectations. You thank her with a nod. She grins, then bolts off before anyone can suggest chores. As night begins to fall, firelight flickers to life across the hills. Smoke curls up into the darkening sky. You hear laughter, faint and warm, and the clatter of bowls. Somewhere a flute plays a meandering tune that doesn't bother finding the right notes. It just exists like the river. You sit by one of the fires, not speaking. The heat is soft. Someone passes you a bowl of warm porridge. It's bland and a little smoky, but somehow perfect. And as you sit, you think again of you, not the hero, not the king, but the man. Covered in mud, tired, hungry, wondering if all this effort would even last, if the people he helped would remember him, or just the myth. There's no monument to him here. No statues, no shrines, just the river still flowing, just the land still fed, just the people still gathering. That's something. You lie back, the turtle carving tucked in your hand. Above you, the stars begin to blink into view, shy, flickering things, as if unsure whether they're invited. You smile. They are. The firelight fades behind you as morning stretches across the sky in soft apricot tones. The turtle carving rests comfortably in your pocket. Well, whatever counts as a pocket in this vague, timeless linen tunic situation you've got going on. You give it a little squeeze for luck as you follow the path eastward, through dew-damp fields and into a landscape that starts to feel more deliberate. Gone are the scattered huts and loose animal pens. What lies ahead seems planned, not modern by any stretch, but intentional. Raised mounds of packed earth, long, straight roads of hard clay, the scent of ash and wet stone. You're entering a place now whispered about in dusty academic circles and under the breath of old storytellers. Erlitu. Now, let's be upfront. No one knows for sure if this was truly the capital of the Xia Dynasty. But if there were a top 10 list of places most likely to have hosted a mysterious prehistoric government, Erlitu would be trending hard. Dated to somewhere around 1900-1500 BCE, It's filled with hints, guesses, and architectural gossip. You step lightly across a wide, flat courtyard of sun-dried brick. It's quiet now, save for the occasional cluck of a very confused chicken echoing through a half-collapsed corridor. But once, maybe, this place buzzed with activity. Workers ferrying bronze tools, messengers sprinting with knotted cords of reed script, a noble's son sulking because his ceremonial robe itched and he had to stand still for another hour-long rite. You can almost hear the complaining. The foundations stretch before you like the blueprint of a forgotten thought. What's left are outlines. Low stone walls, post holes, divots that might have been wells, storerooms, or makeshift bedrooms for someone important but not too important. One widely accepted fact: Erlitou contains China's earliest known palace complex. It even had roads aligned to cardinal directions, a very early sign of organized urban planning. You imagine someone pointing at the stars, then down at the dirt, insisting, no, the latrine must face northeast. It makes you grin. Not far from the palace ruins is a strange arrangement of broken pottery and bones. It's too structured to be garbage. You crouch low. The pottery is decorated, not elaborate, just enough flair to suggest someone wanted this to look nice. These could have been ceremonial offerings. Or just someone's really intense dinner party. Historians still debate. One of the shards has a neat little groove in it, like it was meant to slot into something else. A lid, maybe, or part of a mold. You wonder, did someone make this piece? Shape it with their hands, fire it with care, then smash it on purpose. That's commitment. You walk past the faint remains of what might have been a watchtower. It's long gone now, just a raised earthen circle, but the view is still good. From up here, you see more of the settlement stretching out. Rectangular structures in tidy rows, narrow lanes winding between them, and scattered courtyards designed, maybe, for gatherings or rituals. There's a quiet sort of majesty here. Nothing like the later glory of Chang'an or Luoyang. But still something proud, purposeful. Like a whisper insisting, we were here. As you continue wandering, a strange glint in the dust catches your eye. You stoop, brush it gently with your fingers, and reveal a small bronze blade still sharp at the edge. It's not ornate, no dragon carvings or dramatic flourish, but it hums with age. This is no casual farm tool. This was likely for ceremony, status, or, let's be honest, some very persuasive negotiations. Bronze like this would have been precious, rare, melted, traded, hoarded, that it's still here. A small miracle, or a really bad hiding place, quirky detail. Many Erlitou artifacts, bronze vessels, tools, and even decorative inlays have been found with turquoise insets, not exactly local. Someone went out of their way to get it. Imagine hiking hundreds of miles just to accessorize your teapot. Respect, you run your fingers across the tool's surface. Cold, smooth, just a hint of a nick near the edge. You imagine someone, perhaps a young blacksmith with a steady hand and calloused palms, crafting it while a rooster heckles him from a nearby fence post. As you pocket the blade carefully, respectfully, not to worry, bedtime archaeology is legally immune to curses, you step inside what remains of a narrow hall. It's open to the sky now, vines curling along the edges. But the floor beneath your feet is smooth, pressed flat by decades of footsteps. You pause, there's an echo here, not the sound kind, the memory kind. Like the walls remember processions, chants, and arguments over grain policy, you sit on a fallen beam and listen. The wind flutters past, tickling your ears. In the distance, someone is playing a stringed instrument with only 2 notes. They repeat gently, over and over. Not music, exactly. More like a lullaby that forgot the words. This was a place of rule. Whether by decree or ritual, no one's quite sure. But it's easy to imagine that decisions were made here. Taxes counted. Disputes settled. And, perhaps, a few passionate speeches delivered by elders who really just wanted to bring back barley beer Mondays. Historians still wonder how far the Xia's influence reached. Was this a kingdom in the modern sense? Or more like a central clan that convinced everyone else they were in charge? The archaeology is promising, but the written record, sparse, almost non-existent. Some believe the Xia rulers used oracle bones like their Shang successors. Others say those came later, and Xia communication was more oral, songs, proverbs, dramatic yelling across fields. Who's to say you lean back, let the sun warm your face through the broken roof above? And then a thought: if you squint, really squint, the layout of Erlatu looks like a blueprint for everything that would come later. It's not grandeur, but it's foundation. The beginning of Chinese cities, governance, culture. It's like you're standing in the sketch version of a masterpiece. And somehow that's more beautiful. You rise, brushing dust from your tunic, and step out into the open. The day is warming now. You hear someone laughing in the distance. A cart creaks. A child sings a song with no rhythm but plenty of heart. The palace is behind you, but something else lies ahead. The road ahead is less defined now, more like a suggestion. It wobbles between clusters of sun-bleached stones and weed-covered mounds that might have been buildings, or just very opinionated hills. Your feet crunch over gravel and dry grass as the landscape gently hums beneath you, quiet but not empty. Soon the air changes. There's a faint smell, smoky, metallic, and earthy. You follow it, curving down a slope and around a bend until you stumble, politely, into a small working site. Or rather, what's left of one. This would have been a bronze casting workshop. You can tell by the scattered remnants, bits of slag, broken molds, and half-formed tools abandoned mid-pour, like their creator got distracted by something more interesting, or more on fire. You crouch by a shallow pit, still blackened from use. It's surrounded by stones arranged in a loose circle, with the telltale greenish stain of oxidized copper in the soil. There's something reverent about the way the tools lie there, like a forgotten altar to the gods of metallurgy and mild third-degree burns. Bronze in the Xia Dynasty wasn't just metal. It was power, ritual, and, on a good day, technology so advanced it made people think you had divine connections. The earliest bronze items were often small: knives, axes, tools, and ceremonial vessels. Functional, yes, but also symbolic. You find a piece of a mold. It's cracked, but the inside is still smooth, possibly for an axe head or a chisel. You trace its edge, thinking of the hands that poured molten bronze into it, careful, precise, probably sweating profusely and swearing softly. This wasn't easy work. Bronze making meant mining, hauling, smelting, and casting, all with tools that, frankly, wouldn't pass a modern safety inspection. Still, they managed. And they didn't just manage, they innovated. You reach a low table, really just a wide, flat stone littered with decorative fragments. Not tools this time, but art. Swirls and rings, animal patterns, little knobby protrusions that seem to serve no purpose beyond. Looking kind of cool. One has turquoise inlaid in bronze, forming the stylized head of a dragon or maybe a pig. It's hard to tell. Ancient designers weren't big on labeling things. You tilt it in the light and admire the shine, wondering how far someone had to travel to find that turquoise. It wasn't local, which means either trade, or a very determined crafter with excellent calves. Across the clearing, a row of spade-shaped objects leans against a low wall. At first, they look like gardening tools. But then you realize, these are ritual spades, sometimes used as ceremonial symbols rather than for digging. You pick one up. It's heavier than expected and faintly warm from the sun. The shaft is smooth, almost polished by time, while the blade is wide and flat, perfect for slicing through earth, or through metaphor. It might have represented fertility, land, or even the ruler's ability to shape the kingdom one scoop at a time. You twirl it like a sword. Instantly drop it. Shake your wrist. These things are not ergonomic. There's an open debate among scholars about how much of Xia's bronze was practical and how much was ritualistic theater. Some pieces clearly served everyday uses. Others, they look like they belonged in a parade float for the gods, gigantic urns. Axes too big for actual chopping. You imagine someone lugging one to a ceremony, muttering, "This would be so much easier if we didn't have to impress heaven every 5 minutes." You pause beneath a wooden awning, what's left of one anyway. Just 2 uprights and a crooked beam, but it provides shade and a nice frame for the view. Behind you, the tools of industry. Ahead of you, distant structures peeking over the hill. Maybe a market or an early shrine, you can't tell. But you know one thing, bronze changed the game. This wasn't just shiny metal. It allowed for sturdier tools, better farming, sharper weapons, and, crucially, the ability to visibly display status. Want people to know you're in charge? Show up with a custom-made, inlaid bronze axe the size of your torso and a frown that says, "I have tax policy opinions." You wander past another furnace site. A cracked crucible lies on its side, its edges glassy from heat. A few melted beads of metal glint in the dirt. One of them is shaped like a small, accidental cat. You consider keeping it, then decide against accidentally taking home a cursed feline pebble. As you walk, you imagine the sounds that once filled this space. The roar of bellows, the hiss of molten metal, the clink of tools, the barked instructions of a smith trying to teach an apprentice who keeps dropping things. Some of the most impressive early bronzes were ding vessels, tripod cauldrons used for cooking, sacrifices, and ceremonies. They were both practical and symbolic, and possessing one meant power. The bigger the ding, the bigger the deal. It's like ancient China's version of. The size of your car says everything. You pass a broken ding now, its 3 legs splayed like a collapsed stool. It's cracked but elegant. The handles curve like curled animal horns. The basin is deep enough to fit a goat or a very enthusiastic soup. You run your fingers along the rim and feel a tiny inscription scratched faintly into the metal. It's too worn to read, but the gesture remains. You wonder, did someone offer thanks here? A prayer to the ancestors, a tribute before a harvest. The air is still. And then, faintly, you hear humming. You turn toward the hill. A woman is walking up the path, carrying a bundle of reeds and a wide straw hat tilted low. She doesn't see you because technically you're not quite here, but her song wraps around the breeze like soft thread. She passes the workshop ruins, pauses briefly, and bows toward the furnace stones. Just a slight nod of respect. Then she continues on her way, humming her slow, looping tune. You watch until she disappears over the ridge. Bronze making may have started with smoke, sweat, and guesswork. But it left something behind. Not just tools or weapons or shiny heirlooms for future museums, but rhythm. A pace of progress, a sense of forging order out of raw, stubborn earth. You smile. Brush bronze dust from your hands and step forward again. The path takes you through thinner grass now, more worn, as if it's been traveled 1,000 times by bare feet and heavy carts. You pass an old fence, leaning like it's just too tired to stand upright anymore, and a handful of sleepy goats eye you from the other side. One lets out a bleat that sounds suspiciously judgmental. You keep walking. The land opens into a village, not grand, not walled, but deliberate. This isn't some random scattering of huts. The buildings are low and sturdy, arranged around a communal center where smoke curls lazily from a large fire pit. You can hear pots clanking and the familiar chaos of breakfast in progress. Shouting, laughing, something sizzling, and someone clearly burning millet for the second time this week. This is the heartbeat of the Xia Dynasty, not palaces, not bronze, but villages just like this. Places where people ground grain, tended fires, raised families, and spent their days solving the same 3 problems. Eat, sleep, don't let the goats eat the altar decorations. You wander through the center. A few villagers pass through you without a second glance, because you're not quite here, remember, but their routines are vivid. A young girl tosses a bundle of herbs into a clay pot, her motions practiced and quick. A boy carries water from a well with the solemn pride of someone entrusted with a very serious adult task. His sandals don't match. Someone's grandmother is shouting at a chicken. The chicken is winning. You pause near the fire pit. Around it, flat stones serve as seats. A large clay vessel sits to the side, steam curling from its wide mouth. The air smells of scorched rice, sweet yams, and wood smoke, a fragrance that somehow makes your stomach rumble, even though you know it's not real. Above the pit, a woven canopy provides patchy shade. Hanging from it are bundles of drying roots, herbs, and, is that garlic? You nod in approval. Some things are timeless. You settle on a sun-warmed rock and watch the morning unfold. It's not glamorous, but it's alive. Someone scrapes a grinding stone in the distance. SHHHHR. Okay. Shhrk, grinding millet to a fine dust. Another pounds roots in a mortar. Children's voices rise and fall like waves. A dog, possibly the most content animal in China, naps on its back near the fire, twitching as it dreams. One of the lesser-known quirks of Xia daily life. They may have brewed beer. Not the IPA kind, but a fermented millet drink that was likely served warm and occasionally regretted the next morning. Archaeologists have found residue in old pots, suggesting some villagers took fermentation very seriously. You imagine a couple of elders with matching eyebrow length arguing over whether this year's batch was chewy enough. You stroll to the edge of the village, where a garden grows in neat rows. Early cabbage, root vegetables, beans climbing a wooden frame. A woman tends them with steady hands and no patience for nonsense. Her expression says, "If one more squirrel gets into my turnips." You tiptoe past. Beyond the garden, a pen holds a few pigs and something that looks like a very suspicious sheep. The animals shuffle, snort, and chew thoughtfully. These are not livestock destined for Instagram. They are lumpy and practical. You try not to make eye contact with the rooster. The homes themselves are made of wattle and daub, woven sticks packed with mud, layered and dried in the sun. The roofs are thatched, sloping and low. You peek into one. Inside, a clay hearth is built into the floor. A handful of pottery pieces are lined on a shelf. The sleeping mat is woven reed. A bundle of clothes hangs from a peg and someone's sandals sit neatly by the door. It's small. But it's home. You step back outside, blinking against the light. A breeze carries the scent of early rain. Somewhere, someone strikes a small stone bell and its soft, resonant chime echoes gently through the village. It's not for a ceremony, just a signal. Time to switch chores or eat. Or maybe a reminder to check the goats, because let's be honest, they're plotting something. In the corner of the village square, you find a man whittling. He's old, but his hands are steady, and the little animal shape he's carving is coming to life in his palm. You sit beside him on an overturned bucket and watch as shavings curl to the ground. It's peaceful. He doesn't speak, but his presence says, yes, this is what life is. This moment, a question drifts into your mind, something scholars still ask today: how much of Xia life was unified? Did villages like this all follow the same customs? Or did they each have their own flavors, dialects, beliefs? It's hard to know. Written records are scarce. Oral history fades, but bones and pots and fire pits, they whisper. And what they say is, people cooked and argued and laughed and made things with their hands. That part at least feels certain. A light drizzle begins to fall, dotting the packed earth with little dark freckles. No one panics. A few people cover baskets. A kid sticks out their tongue to catch drops. You do the same, just to see if it works. It does. You find a dry spot under a wide tree and sit again. The branches creak overhead, full of tiny leaves dancing in the breeze. Rain taps a soft rhythm on the canopy. Below, the fire pit has been covered. Breakfast is done. Tools are set aside. The village slows. You lean against the tree trunk and close your eyes. Not to sleep, just to soak it in. The breath of a moment. The rhythm of a day. The low, gentle buzz of life in progress. This isn't the Xia you read about in legends. No dragons, no crowns, no glowing swords forged from divine lightning. Just a morning. A meal. A fire crackling as someone stirs a pot with a wooden spoon carved by their grandfather. You smile. Sometimes history doesn't need a hero. Sometimes it just needs rice that doesn't burn and a goat that stays in the pen. The rain passes with the kind of elegance that makes you suspect the clouds rehearse these exits. The ground smells richer now, like soaked grain, mossy bark, and secrets unearthed. You stretch, give the turtle carving in your pocket a reassuring pat, and walk on. The village softens behind you as you follow a narrow footpath that winds through brush and into a grove of crooked trees. They lean like gossips, branches close together, as if sharing centuries of overheard stories. The path darkens, shaded by thick green above, but there's a glow ahead, a fire. Not a wild one, no panic required. Just a campfire, carefully tended, crackling in the center of a small clearing. Around it sit a handful of figures, men, women, a few children, wrapped in furs and soft hemp robes, sitting on stones or woven mats. They're quiet, not asleep, just settled. You notice how their eyes drift from the fire to each other, then to the storyteller in their midst. And he is what draws you in. His hair is tied back, streaked with white, and his robes are layered like someone important but not flashy about it. In his lap, a wooden staff rests, curved at the top like a lazy question mark. He doesn't speak loudly. In fact, his voice is so gentle you almost lean forward without realizing it. "And when you drove the flood dragon into the western sea," he says, "it thrashed so hard that the rivers shook and the mountains bent. But you, clever you, did not strike it down. He whispered to it, promised it safe passage if it swore never to rise again." The group is still. A few eyes are wide. One kid is quietly picking his nose, but with fascinated intensity. You sit at the edge, unnoticed and yet part of it, drawn into the firelight and the rhythm of this age-old craft. Myth-telling. The Xia Dynasty is full of hazy history and spotty archaeology, but one thing is certain. Its legends run deep, passed from mouth to mouth like river water through cupped hands. You listen as the storyteller weaves tales of gods and monsters, floods and wisdom. In one story, the sky splits open and rains fire. In another, the first emperor is born from the breath of a white deer and raised by cloud spirits. There's no concern for continuity, just feeling. He tells of Yu's footprints hardening into stone so travelers could follow. Of a sword that sang when danger was near. Of a golden carp that taught a village elder how to speak to trees. You're not sure that one caught on. These aren't facts in the academic sense. They're emotional architecture. Stories that help explain why the river floods, why the moon shifts, why you shouldn't anger the pig herder on the full moon. Because he might be, according to one very enthusiastic tale a werbore, you hide a smirk, one quirky detail that actually has some basis. The Xia may have practiced animal-shaped totem worship, possibly linking clans to mythical creatures. Some were dragons, others tigers. One group may have even claimed the tortoise, which feels personally affirming, considering the little guy in your pocket. The storyteller pauses. Stirs the fire with a stick. The flames spit in reply, then he shifts. The tone changes. Now he speaks of ancestors, of rituals, of offerings left beneath trees or in the hollows of sacred stones, of voices carried into smoke. You glance at the fire and wonder how many prayers have been whispered into flames over the centuries. How many bargains made under starlight? Some say, the storyteller says softly, that our ancestors are not gone, only waiting, listening, watching, quiet as rain in the roots. You feel a chill, but not the scary kind, the mystery kind. It makes you think. Did everyone believe the same stories? Probably not. Even now, across mountains and valleys, each village likely had its own gods, its own legends. Yet shared threads remained. Dragons, ancestors, the river that gives and takes. Scholars today still debate how structured Xia spirituality really was. Were these unified state rituals, or just deeply personal folklore? There's little hard evidence, but the repetition of symbols, touty masks, dragons, suns, earth motifs, suggests a cultural web woven tighter than we'll ever fully see. The fire pops. One child, maybe 5 or 6, asks the storyteller, "Is it true that if you wear deer antlers during the harvest moon, your dreams come true?" He smiles. "Only if you sleep upside down in a tree." The kids erupt into giggles. You suspect at least one of them will try it. He continues, softer now, voice like the wind teasing through leaves. "Not all stories are true, but all of them carry truth, not in what they say, but in what we feel when we hear them." He pokes the fire again. Sparks float up like lazy stars. Around you, heads rest on shoulders. One person starts humming quietly. A lullaby in a scale you've never heard before, but it works anyway. You look up. The trees have opened above, revealing a patch of sky now freckled with stars. The firelight flickers along the branches. The clearing feels like a heartbeat, like a breath being held. You wonder again about the people who lived this history, not kings or warriors, but those who told the stories, who remembered. who embellished a little because, let's be honest, a flood dragon is more fun than the river rose again, and you realize this is how the Xia lives on. Not in stone or scrolls, but in voice passed from grandfather to daughter, from uncle to neighbor, from elder to curious child who doesn't care whether you was real, only whether he mattered. You lie back, the ground still warm beneath you, and watch the smoke curl toward the stars. The turtle charm rests on your chest now, as if it knows this is its chapter. Above you, the trees sway like they're applauding quietly. The fire dims, the storyteller's voice fades, and the stories, they linger. You wake not with a jolt, but with the kind of slow, drowsy drift that only comes from lying too long on warm earth. A yawn catches in your chest, slow and heavy, as you stretch and hear something pop in your back that might have also popped during the Xia Dynasty. You're fine. Mostly. The fire's out now, just a small spiral of smoke curling lazily upward, dissolving into morning mist. The grove is empty, the storyteller and his small crowd gone as quietly as they came. You sit up, brush a few sleepy leaves off your tunic, and glance at the faint path winding deeper into the woods. You follow it. It leads you gently down into a new valley, where the trees thin and sunlight spills over the ridge like warm honey. You step into it, blinking, and find yourself at the edge of another village. This one's smaller, tighter, cozier, and already buzzing with morning life. Someone's roasting something that smells suspiciously like sweet potato. A child chases a chicken with the energy of 10 adults and the precision of 0 adults. An old man sneezes 4 times in a row and acts personally betrayed by each one. You're here to observe the rhythm of an ordinary Xia morning, because while myth built memory, habit built the dynasty. The streets, or rather, the worn paths between huts, are alive with movement. A woman with calloused hands empties an armload of laundry into a basin and begins pounding it with something that looks like a ceremonial stick, but is almost certainly just a regular stick doing a side gig. A boy hauls a basket of millet over one shoulder, swaying with each step. His little sister follows, carrying a single squash like it's a sacred offering. You stifle a chuckle. In one corner of the square, 2 women grind grain together, side by side, rhythm perfectly synced, scrape, pull, scrape, pull. Their conversation flows in low murmurs, too soft to make out, not because they're whispering, just because it's the kind of talk that's worn in familiar. Gossip, maybe. Or just the weather. Or how someone's goat escaped again and ate the doormat. The Xia Dynasty didn't have spectacular cities, at least not in the modern sense, but they had structure. Social roles were taking root, divisions of labor, seasonal rhythms. The whisperings of early government tucked behind everyday life like a spider web behind a cupboard. Easy to ignore, but definitely there. You stop near the village hearth, a large communal pit where a pot simmers gently. Inside, something beige and bubbly, not porridge, not quite soup. Whatever it is, it smells oddly comforting, like calories in a bowl. You inhale deeply and try not to drool on history. Then comes the sound of tools, not loud, but steady. Clink, clink, clink. You turn and follow it to a narrow shed where a group of men and women shape wood and stone. One sharpens a tool on a grindstone. Another carves a groove into a wooden shaft. A third adjusts a handle, muttering as she goes, "There's no factory here, just coordination." Quiet expertise passed from parent to child, neighbor to neighbor. Apprenticeship wasn't formal, but it was everywhere. You learned by watching, failing, and then doing it again with fewer bruises. A quirky detail. Xia villages may have used pre-standardized weights and measures, especially for trading food or bronze tools. Imagine bartering a clay pot in exchange for 3 handfuls and 1 long stick of millet. Accurate, maybe, deliciously vague. Absolutely, you wander to a shaded corner where a man paints symbols onto pottery using a thick reed brush. The symbols aren't letters, not yet, more like early emblems. Waves, suns, grains, animals, they carry meaning if not grammar. One pot has a swirl so perfect it feels more spiritual than decorative. You crouch beside him. He dips his brush again and hums as he works. You don't recognize the tune, you don't need to. It matches the movement, And then, of course, the ceremony bell rings, not a big one. Just a stone bell hung from a wood beam, struck 3 times in slow succession. You look around, no panic, no rush, just a subtle shift. People straighten. A few begin walking toward the hill. You follow them to a small rise at the edge of the village. There you find a ritual platform, little more than a stone slab and a bundle of dried grasses. A woman kneels and places a bowl of grain on the slab. She closes her eyes, murmurs something into the air. You listen. The prayer is simple, thankful, asking for rain, but not too much. For strong harvests, for peaceful sleep, for ancestors to stop messing with the dreams of children. That last part gets a little laugh from someone nearby. The woman rises, leaves the bowl, walks back down the hill, and that's it. No fireworks, no fanfare, just quiet continuity. Historians still debate how centralized Xia religion really was. Some believe there were organized temples and priestly classes. Others think rituals were more personal, tied to families, clans, or natural features like trees, rivers, or oddly shaped rocks that looked like Grandpa's nose. You head back toward the village. Now, the sound of weaving takes over. 2 girls sit on low stools, pulling thread through looms made from sticks and twine. Their fingers move quickly, tugging and looping. The cloth grows inch by inch, coarse but sturdy. One of them sticks out her tongue in concentration. The other whistles badly, but with enthusiasm. You sit nearby, hypnotized by the pattern they're making, diagonal lines, broken occasionally by little diamonds. You wonder if they'll become robes or sacks or curtains for someone's ceremonial chicken coop. That's a real possibility. As the sun climbs higher, heat ripples off rooftops. The village begins to slow. People retreat into shade. Children lie under trees, staring at clouds and making up constellations you'll never find in any modern textbook. You lie down too. Above you, birds drift lazily through blue. A dragonfly zips by like it's late for something. The grass tickles your arms. The turtle charm rests gently against your chest. You think about how dynasties begin, not with declarations or bloodlines, but with habits. The first song hummed during chores. The first hand-me-down trick for cooling porridge faster. The first time someone says, "We've always done it this way." The first time a village breathes together, you close your eyes and drift again. When you open your eyes, the world has changed. Not dramatically, no marching armies or collapsing palaces, but subtly. The air feels heavier. The sun is lower, casting long golden streaks across the ground like it's trying to hold on just a little longer. And the village, once humming with ritual and rhythm, now carries a faint undercurrent of tension. You're still in the same valley, but something's shifted. The warmth is here, the daily work continues, but people glance over their shoulders more. Voices are quieter. The laughter, once frequent and easy, comes less often now. You walk the same paths, but even the goats seem like they're up to something. Welcome to the twilight of the Xia Dynasty. You've heard about the rise, use flood control, Kai's inheritance, the bronze, the rituals, the rhythms of village life. But now it's time for something different, something slower and sadder. You're entering the realm of Jai, the last ruler of the Xia, and possibly one of the earliest case studies in how to lose an empire in 10 easy banquets. Jai is a complicated figure. History, or more accurately, the people who wrote history later, paint him as a tyrant. A decadent, selfish, delightfully over-the-top villain whose misdeeds were so grand, they practically came with their own fireworks. He's said to have built palaces of solid jade, dug massive lakes filled with wine, and ordered parties that lasted for days, while his people barely had millet to chew. You pass a carved rock along the side of the road. It bears a symbol, possibly for warning, or maybe just this guy again. You smirk. One widely accepted fact. Jai was seen as a ruler who had lost the mandate of heaven, a concept that would become essential in later Chinese dynasties. The idea was simple. Rulers held power not by birthright alone, but because heaven allowed it. And when you messed up enough, through cruelty, corruption, or lake-sized wine tastings, heaven politely revoked your access. You walk into a larger settlement now. The huts are still simple, the people still hard-working, but there's clear division. One side of the village has neatly stacked grain and new clay pots. The other side, not so much. Cracked walls, less food, eyes that watch you not with curiosity but with quiet resignation. Whispers follow you. Did you hear what Jai did? Another tax. They took half the harvest. He built a new hall, but no one's allowed inside unless they bring him a gift. It's the Xia Dynasty's awkward teenage phase, the part where everything's unraveling, but no one wants to admit it yet. You find yourself drawn toward a hill overlooking the village. On top sits a structure, larger than anything you've seen so far. Part house, part temple, part vanity project. The walls are smoothed with colored clay, painted with symbols meant to intimidate. A carving of a dragon wins along one edge, but the proportions are all wrong. The tail's too short. The head looks like it's frowning. You step closer and peer through a narrow window. Inside, a banquet is underway. Not for you, of course. You're the invisible traveler here. But it's in full swing, roasted meats, shining cups, garlands of dyed silk strung from wooden rafters. Laughter spills out like perfume, rich and overdone. Jai himself sits at the far end, reclined on an animal pelt throne. His robe glitters in the firelight. A woman beside him, Daji, some say, though her historical existence is debated, leans in to whisper something in his ear. He laughs, slaps the table, and orders more wine. His face, handsome maybe once, now it's hard to tell. Arrogance has melted it into something off. The kind of smile you don't trust. The kind of eyes that don't see people, only pieces on a board. You back away from the window and almost bump into a young man standing behind you. He doesn't react, just watches the hall with quiet fury. His clothes are plain, his hands are clenched. You feel something shift in the air, like the breeze itself has turned colder. This is how dynasties fall, not with a single event, but with 1,000 tiny betrayals of trust, each one cutting a little deeper. People talk about Jai's extravagance, his cruelty, his refusal to listen. One account says he executed advisors who spoke against him. Another claims he taxed peasants into starvation, then built a music hall to celebrate the prosperity of his reign. Historians still debate, was he truly this bad? Or was his infamy crafted by the next dynasty, the Shang, to justify their takeover? You wander back down the hill. Night is falling again, and the village glows in pockets. Small fires, lanterns of oiled paper, but there's little celebration, no stories tonight, no songs, just quiet. A stillness thick enough to cut, and yet you find one hut with music, a low, pulsing rhythm from a two-string fiddle. A woman plays it by candlelight. Her notes are slow, not sad exactly, just tired. Honest, you sit beside her, unseen, and close your eyes. This is how the people survive, not with politics, but with memory. They'll remember the early days, the harvests, the rituals. The child who tried to sleep upside down in a tree because of a myth. They'll remember you. They might even remember Jai, but not kindly, because soon this dynasty will end. A new one will rise, the Shang, with their own stories, their own gods, their own version of history. But for now, you breathe in the last notes of a dying era. The music plays, and the Xia dreams its final dream. You stay beside the music until the flame gutters out. The candle's last flicker throws a final gold ripple across the room, catches in the woman's eyes, and disappears. The notes stop. The fiddle rests. And for a moment, everything in the world seems to hold its breath, like the Xia itself is listening for an echo of what it used to be. Then, slowly, it exhales. You rise, stepping once more into the dusk. But the air no longer carries the scent of cooking smoke or the subtle sweetness of millet. Now it's sharp, cool, dusty, a little metallic, like soil that's been turned for a burial. Not a literal one, not yet, but something old is settling into the ground and something new is stirring. You wander the outskirts of the village. It's mostly quiet now, save for a few dogs barking at the moon like it personally offended them. The stars above are bolder tonight, clearer, closer. Like they're leaning in to watch history happen. You find a small hill overlooking a distant camp. Not a Xia village, something else. Tents, spears. Banners with curling symbols you don't recognize, but somehow understand. These are the Shang. The next chapter. According to later records, a man named Tang of Shang rises against Jai. not with brute strength alone, but with a message that Jai has failed, that the Xia no longer holds heaven's favor, that a new order is coming. Whether this was a noble revolution or just a power grab with great PR is still up for debate. But what matters is, people listen, you stay on the hill. Watch the torches move in the dark, a slow advance through the tall grass of time. There are no armies here, not in the way you might expect. No thunder of hooves, no siege engines, just steps and choices. Villagers whispering that maybe it's time. Farmers turning away from Jai's tax collectors. Even goats probably changing allegiance based on snack availability. The Xia isn't conquered in one night. It fades. Some say Jai fled to a tower far away, surrounded by treasure, too proud to surrender and too weak to stop the unraveling. Others claim he was captured, exiled, or executed. You'll never know for sure, but you do know this: his story ends here. And yet, not everything ends with him. You stand at the edge of a field, wide, empty, kissed by moonlight. And there, buried beneath centuries of dust and debate, lies the heartbeat of the Xia, not the king, not the jade palaces. But the echo, the way people still tell stories of you, the way villages still face the river and murmur prayers, the way bronze bells ring at dusk, the way a child clutches a turtle carving and wonders what it means, you close your eyes and listen for that echo. And you hear it not as words but as a rhythm, like footsteps on a worn path, like a drum softened by time, like a history not quite forgotten because the Xia never left completely. It slipped beneath the surface, into the customs that followed, into the language, the rituals, the expectations of what a ruler should be. The Shang may have claimed the stage next, but even they carried bits of Xia in their bones. After all, you can't build a house without the shape of the foundation beneath. And so, lying in the grass, looking up at stars that watched this all happen in real time, you let yourself drift. You think about all the people you passed. The storyteller with his firelight myths, the girl chasing the goat, the smith who shaped a blade with more care than fame. None of them saw themselves as history, but they were. You roll onto your side, the earth is soft here, warm, familiar, and even though the Xia has ended, something in you feels like it's still unfolding. Like maybe, buried deep within the bones of this ancient, uncertain dynasty, there's something still breathing, still learning, still dreaming. You don't need to move now, you've come a long way, the fires have faded. The stories have ended for the night, the earth beneath you is still. Gentle, the kind of stillness that feels like a blanket tucked just right. Above, the stars blink slowly, patiently. You watch them without effort. Each one a memory, a flicker of something ancient that doesn't need to explain itself. Just like the Xia, your breathing slows, one breath in, one breath out, long, easy. The wind moves softly through the grass beside you. It doesn't hurry, it just passes like time, like stories. Like kings who ruled too long or not long enough. And even though the names may blur and the dates may dance, the feeling remains. That quiet, steady hum of people living, hoping, trying, failing, loving, planting millet and wondering about the stars. You're part of that rhythm now. The quiet legacy that doesn't shout but lingers. So let go of the last image, let it dissolve. The jade palace, the village fire, the girl with the turtle charm, let them all drift into mist and memory. Your breath becomes slower still. Your limbs soften. Your mind floats gently down like a feather caught in twilight. And there, in the hush between one thought and the next, you settle, not into sleep, but into dreaming. The kind of dreaming that travels through time without needing permission. The kind of dreaming that carries the shape of forgotten dynasties. The kind of dreaming that whispers, you are part of this too.